Keep up to date with all our sport news on the Scotsman Sport page on Facebook. 50. Yusuf Mulembu Kilmarnock. The Congolese midfielder is only in at number 50 for one specific reason: he didn't play enough football. Full disclosure, it's a nightmare trying to put together these lists. You end up with about 75 players you want to include and then agonize over which ones to chop. In order to make the process slightly easier, I tend not to include players who've often featured in half a season. So if you're hoping to find Curtis Main, Florian Cambery or Jamie McLaren, you'll be sorely disappointed. They won't feature. Mulembu makes the list because A. he signed in November, and B. he made such an impact that it was impossible not to include him, even though that would have made things simpler. Kilmarnock were already improved under Stevie Clarke, but Mulembu took them to another level. Without him there would have been no victory over Celtic, no comeback against Rangers before Christmas, or win at Ibrox in the new year. He gave his teammates and the club a lift, and he deserves to be recognized as a result. 49. Alan Lithgow Livingston. The lower league journeyman will get his first taste of Ladbrokes Premiership football after a terrific campaign with Livingston culminated in ascension to the top flight. The 30-year-old has often been viewed as one of the more talented players in the lower leagues, and it's likely he would have garnered at least some interest from the bigger clubs were it not for a much-publicized conviction 10 years ago. 48. Alex Schalk Ross County. The Dutchman came close to not making the list, seeing as he spent parts of the campaign playing behind Thomas Mickelson, Billy McKay and INIHFing in the pecking order. However, seeing as he scored 13 goals for the worst team in the top flight, we can put his omission from the team down to a lack of competency from his various managers. 47. Scott Sinclair Celtic. Yes. I know. Sinclair has not been great this season. He started slow and got worse. However, he still finished as the top goal scorer on the best team in the country. Had he put in the exact same level of performance for any other club, especially one in the bottom six, we would probably have been hailing him rather than continually questioning how poor he was playing. 46. Murray Davidson St Johnstone. This is the only St Johnstone player to make the list. A few others came into consideration but didn't quite achieve the required level of performance across the campaign, underlining how many of the Saints' teams struggled to live up to their previous standards. Stephen McLean hit only 9 goals, Joe Shaughnessy was at fault for more goals than the previous 2 seasons combined, Liam Craig was a creative outlet but overall he struggled in midfield, and Stephen Anderson's form fell off a cliff. Alan Manis missed around half of his team's games, and while Scott Tanzer was a surprise positive filling in for Brian Easton at left back, he didn't quite have enough to make the list. That leaves Davidson. While his displays may not have matched his contribution from previous seasons, he was Saints' most consistent player across the campaign, which is all the more impressive when you consider he had about 6 different midfield partners along the way. As an aside, young Fraser Kerr came close to a place after some excellent showings following his loan from Queen of the South in the first half of the campaign. If he keeps this up, he'll definitely make a top 50 in the near future. 45. Lewis Stevenson Hibs. The most curious Scotland selection since Ian Black he may be, but Stevenson certainly deserves to feel proud of his call-up after the best campaign of his career. Aside from the final 2 games, he was reliable defensively and improved his game going forward, particularly his crossing, which was previously an issue for the left-back who, until recently, was regarded by many Hibs supporters as a natural central midfielder playing out of position. 44. Jamie McDonald, Kilmarnock the best goalkeeper in the first half of the campaign. McDonald didn't make any glaring errors and managed to pull off about 4 outstanding saves. He, almost literally, threw one in the net against Hibs before the turn of the year. His form dropped off a bit with a couple of more, less obvious gaffes creeping in. However, he continued to make some fine stops, and was, in this writer's opinion, the third best goalkeeper in the top flight this past season. 43. Gary Harkins, Morton, similar to Chris Boyd's renaissance in the top flight. Harkins looked finished after a disappointing campaign with Ayr United, who managed to finish bottom of the second tier last term despite the best efforts of Gary Locke and John Hughes at relegation rivals Raith Rovers. His signing at Morton raised a few eyebrows, as many felt his next move would have been down a division and into part-time football. Harkins proved the doubters wrong with a terrific season. Playing largely in a deeper role than we are used to seeing the mercurial magician perform, he was able to dictate games with his superior technique and passing. He also chipped in with 8 goals as Morton looked certain to make the playoffs before a late-season collapse cost Jim Duffy his job. 42. Tom Rogic, Celtic, another one of those Celtic players who very nearly didn't make the list. Unsurprisingly given his track record, Rogic struggled with injury at times this past season. He also didn't enjoy the brightest of starts before fitness problems caught up with him. However, there's little doubt he's one of the best players in the country. In terms of pure talent, he might be number one, and he's shown it in the big matches, particularly against Rangers. 41. Cammy Smith, St Mirren, the hipster selection as St Mirren's Player of the Year. While Lewis Morgan provided the thrills with his trickery and meters and direct running, Smith was the attacker who brought his A-game every single week. He netted 12 goals in all competitions, brought an additional source of creativity to the attack and consistently ran himself into the ground. Last season's top 50 to 41 40 to 31 30 to 21 20 to 11 10 to 1.